Welcome, NAEA members, to this month's Expert Advisor interview call. And we have a very special person on today's call. And, one thing that I can tell you is me and Jay have a very unique opportunity from time to time to meet people that we really see as not only up-and-comers, but people that are just amazing implementers and have an amazing story to share. This particular gentleman is a member of the Mastermind group, and we meet a handful of times every year and really unpack our business. And I had the privilege of recently spending some time with him and his wife out in Acapulco. I won't tell any stories, not that there's any bad stories, just that it was for me personally and the group here at NAEA, it was it took a lot for us to travel out there and get out there. And anyway, this individual made the trip, and I only want to point that out because I want to really punctuate the point that this person invests in their business. They just don't work in their business. They take the time to work on their business, and that's going to be one of the common themes. So I would give you this gentleman's first and last name, but he also has an AKA. So I'm gonna introduce him on what he's known, the name he goes by in his marketplace, and what we know him as in the mastermind. And this is I want to welcome Mr. Handy Andy to the call. Andy, are you there?
I am. Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Great.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you. Today's call, I'm really just here to really unpack and really drill down and discover and distill down to the things that really have allowed you specifically to find success in what I would consider a short amount of time. You've done amazing things. I was really happy and inspired to meet you and really to get to know a little bit more about your business since the last DGS, and more specifically since Acapulco, or I guess in Acapulco. But why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your market, and how you found yourself in this great game of business called real estate.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be, just part of this whole process, NAEA, Mastermind, and just the whole process. But so my, we are the Handy Andy real estate experts, and I guess I'm Handy Andy. Although as I've learned from NAEA, it's important to work on your business, not just in it. So Handy Andy is more becoming a brand, and it's allowing me to kind of not be Handy Andy, which I like actually. But anyway, so we are the Handy Andy real estate experts. My name is Andy Mulholland, and we're in the Rochester, Minnesota market, which is about 80 miles, about an hour or so south of Minneapolis-St. Paul area. It's about 110,000 people that live in Rochester and kind of the surrounding communities. We're the home to the Mayo Clinic, so that's a big draw for us. And then we also have a smaller IBM plant here as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about your market, because you did share with us a little bit. What's the average transaction price for those that might identify with your market a little bit more specifically?
Yeah.
How many? And you might not know, not everybody does, but roughly, can you give us any kind of those types of numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2013, anyway, we had about just over 2,000 sales, and that's sales, not sides, and obviously there's a big difference there, but about 2,000 actual sales in 2013, which for our population size, I think that's a pretty healthy number there. Our average sales price is about $165,000, and average time in market about 80 days. We're down in inventory, about 40% from where we normally are, and that's big. Our biggest challenge over the last 12 to 18 months is that inventory, which I think, from what I'm hearing, is a lot of people's challenge. But that's kind of what we're seeing in our market here.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the real details and the potatoes, I do know that you have an interesting story. I really am going to want you to share it with us, if you don't mind. What did you do before real estate? How did you get into real estate? Because so many people have interesting stories how they find themselves into this business. Why don't you share yours with us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been something that has always been kind of a part of our family, I guess. My father and grandfather used to own a small brokerage in Rochester back in the late 70s. They also had a home. They were home builders. They built homes here in town. But it's been, I guess, late 70s, early 80s, and then since then, nobody in the family's really been involved in real estate. But it's always been something we've talked about, I guess. My wife, who is a nurse at St. Mary's here at the Mayo Clinic here in Rochester, she, I guess I was actually working with my father, who owned another small company here in town, and we came across Dave Ramsey and the Financial Peace University and kind of his whole, being debt-free approach to finances, and heard him on the radio, I think is where it was. And, it made me, I guess we realized that there's a different way to approach finances than what we were. We had some student debt, we had car loans, we, were just kind of living life the way, most people do. And, Dave kind of woke us up to a different way of looking at that. So we quickly realized that, we had to do something different. So what I did was I got a job as a limousine driver, and I drove limousine for quite some time, paying off that debt. And every, my wife had a decent job at Mail, but every dime that I made just went to pay off that debt. And for years, I kept saying, I want to get into real estate. I want to get into real estate. And it just wasn't something that we were financially able to commit to at that point. I remember people telling me, Andy, it's going to be 6 months, 12 months before you sell a home, and that was just a tough thing to just jump into. So that was, it was something that, prevented me from getting in the business. And then I kind of forgot about it and decided, this getting out of debt was what we were going to do. We went through the Financial Peace University, paid off just a ton amount of money in a short amount of time, selling cars, living on rice and beans, which is what Dave always preaches, and driving limousine. And I literally drove every day back and forth. A lot of Mayo doctors will go up to the Twin Cities airport and fly in and out on trips, and so we'll take them. And we also worked with a company called LifeSource that, we would actually, in the middle of the night, I'd get a call saying, all right, you got to go. And I'd have to be at the limousine shop in about a half an hour. And I drive surgeons up to hospitals up in the Twin Cities metro area and wait there, basically sleep in the limo for 8 hours while they harvested organs and then drive them back with a cooler full of organs. So it's pretty crazy, but it actually paid well because you were, getting paid a little more for being available that quickly. So, and usually you slept while you're in the limo. So, it was good paid, but it was tough getting calls at midnight, that you had to be there at 12:30 and, your wife was wondering where the heck you were going and what why you have to leave and all these things. But, we were a team and we did it. And what it allowed us to do, I guess really the point of that is what it allowed us to do was, be in a position where we felt we could go ahead and make that jump into real estate. And sure enough, within, 3 months, I already had a closing. And so this whole time, maybe it wasn't that big a deal, but it allowed me to, I guess, approach the business in a way that I think, unfortunately, not a lot of agents are able to do. And that is, if, we had saved 6 months worth of reserves personally. And so if I didn't sell a house in 6 months, it was okay. And I think my clients felt that. I wasn't pressured to sell a home in the beginning. And they felt that. And sure enough, it happened fairly quickly. So, it was a tough, few years of doing that. But looking back on it, I know that there's just so many things I've learned in that process financially and about myself and about what's important in life and all these things that have allowed me to kind of just maybe approach this business, maybe in a little different way. So.
Well, that's a great point, and that actually brings up something I was really wanting to ask you in Acapulco, and I think this is probably the best format. But what was your biggest challenge that you feel like you had to overcome in the beginning when you finally made that switch to get into real estate? Because we all face so many different challenges. What do you feel like was the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
Biggest challenge, I would say, it was me, I think, believing, I don't know who came up with the saying or who, where it came from originally, but if you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right. And that, it's said all the time, but you really have to believe that. I remember, I had I think I showed you this, Mike, in Acapulco. I had those papers for the first few years where I tracked my business and all my closings, and I hung it, at eye level right inside my office. Every time I left my office, I had to look at that and see where I was at in my business. And at the bottom in a bright red Sharpie, I wrote that. And, it's so true. And so I think that was big for me. I think I had to believe that I could do it. And it was like there is no other choice kind of a thing. Like there is no other choice other than just doing it. And if you truly believe that, then you are right. But on the flip side, if there's even a shadow of doubt in your mind that you can't, that's just gonna take over your mind in so many situations. I think there's enough negativity. There's enough. Darren Hardy talks about that pendulum swing, and to see success, you have to have equal or more failure for that pendulum to swing back to the success side. And that's such a hard thing for a lot of people. For me, it was so hard for me to get that. But you have to have it. And so I guess just that belief, getting over the fear that is this going to work or not. You just finally had to decide and make that choice, really, in your mind that you're going to do this. So that was big for me. There's a lot of other little specific things that we can or we do or don't have to get into, but that was kind of, I think, looking back on it, the big thing was a belief in my mind that I was going to do it. So
absolutely, and so one of our other mastermind members says that the difference between the effort is the energy that it takes, and it's the gap between belief and knowing. And when you know something, things become effortless. And so, that resonates really well with me, and I think a lot of people will definitely resonate. That's good stuff. That's something that I think is very, very helpful. The mindset stuff it's funny, man. No matter what you're doing, it definitely starts with you.
Absolutely.
Going through that process of learning and pushing the pendulum, if you will, if you had to start all over from scratch, what would you do differently to grow your business faster, knowing, I guess, what you know now?
I would have, knowing what I know now, knowing that I know you guys, I would have pushed you to get your stuff in front of me sooner, I would say. But, I mean, when I started, it was the typical thing. I went to the brokerage that, just like everybody's experience, typically you get in a brokerage and they just kind of give you a desk and a phone and there you go. And that's what I experienced. But, expired listings and for sale by owners was big for me in the beginning. I think that's what really got me up and running. I didn't have a budget. I remember when I first started, it was $50 a month is what my wife and I decided that's what I could spend. Top Producer was my first purchase, and I spent 2 days just tweaking it and entering people's contacts in there. I mean, I remember I started, it was a notepad and a computer and a phone, and that notepad got so full of people I was talking to, I knew I had to do something different to track that. And so, I think differently, it's tough. I mean, I think that I would have probably, if I had to look at it, the one thing that kind of exponentially grew my business fairly quick in the beginning was hiring staff. And really that goes to the core of what NAEA is about is taking things off your plate, working on your business instead of in your business. And when you have someone else that you're paying to work in your business for you, it gives you that time to work on it. And so I think I waited, I didn't hire my first assistant until, was it my second year or so? And I probably would have done that a bit sooner, but I was nervous. Didn't want to be responsible for somebody else's paycheck. That made me very nervous. But you know what? You did it. And again, it goes back to if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I finally said, I'm going to do it. We're going to make it work. And it did. And so that was one of the things that I think I probably would have done a little sooner.
What year was that?
Have that mindset. Let's see. So I started in late 2009 and really, I guess, didn't get going until about late 2009, I guess, almost maybe halfway through 2009. But so that would have been 2011 when I hired my first assistant, and I had to start part-time because, financially and just the people that were available to me at that time, part-time was all I could get, but fairly quickly realized that we had to push that to full-time. But it was that mindset, that commitment that this was the direction I was going to go and really work on my business instead of in it. So.
How many units did you do your first 12 months?
First 12 months, I did 28.
And then after you hired your assistant, what would you say the 12 months after that?
So the 12 months after that, we went to almost 50 sales, which was huge.
That is huge. That's almost double. And just for people, what is your goal this year by the end of 2014?
Yeah, well, so last year we did, so our first year 28, second year 48, third year 78. And then just last year that we just finished up, we actually did our goal was 100, and we actually did 149 for about 17.2 million.
And what's the goal for 2014?
Yeah. For 2014, our goal is 150 units and about 26.7 million in volume, which would bring us just over 800,000 in commission, and then transaction fees on top of that.
Now that's funny that you say that, because you didn't say 25 million, you said 26.7. I actually had a question for you about goals and stuff like that, but you said several things, and I feel comfortable. I didn't give Handy Andy all the questions that he's going to be asked today, so he's done a phenomenal job given the notice that I gave him after meeting him in Acapulco and getting to know his business. I just felt like he would be an amazing person to connect with people that are out there growing their business. But, Andy, at 26.7, why the 7? And can you kind of talk to, how you came up with that goal and talk to how important, why don't I let you answer that question before we unpack it?
Absolutely. So, for me, in my mind, the goal is 800, but just to play a trick on my mind, which I find that sometimes I have to do, it's almost like I'm my own, we are our own boss, really, in a sense. Sometimes my calendar is my boss, sometimes my assistant is my boss, but I want my goals to be my boss. And so $801,000 is really what that number is. And it's just to break 800,000. It's like, in your mind, you can say, I broke $800,000. If I just did 800, it would be I did 800. But 801, I broke that. And so, it's a lofty goal. But every year when we have these written goals, we hit them. And I think with the help of NAEA and all the things that it's ridiculous, all the ways. I guess if people think we have done things right, holy cow, all the things we've done wrong. I'm excited about all the things we're starting to do right now, that we're getting some clarity and some direction from people like you guys that have just done this before, and you're still doing it. So that's why, we pushed ourselves to that amount. But 26.7 million in sales volume, we broke it down. I remember in previous years when I had these handwritten goals on these sheets of paper that I'd hang, which worked, but at the same time, what an archaic way of doing it. What we did is, and this is all really what NAE shows us to do, and that is, to break it down and use a KPI tracker and really figure out, okay, where do we all want to be? Working with our buyer's agent. Right now we just have the one buyer's agent, but working with him to figure out what does he want to do, what do I want to do individually, what do we think we can do as a team, and then just breaking it down and using seasonality calculators to figure out, okay, when do we think we need to sell these properties, and really breaking it down to the day. What do we need to do every single day to make sure that we hit that number? And if we do that every single day and keep ourselves accountable to that, then we will hit that number. It's just that simple. It's a predictable way of doing business, and that's the kind of business I want to do. I'm sick of doing it like hoping at the end of the year that we're going to hit our goals, not really knowing and hoping and not really having a plan for that, but actually breaking it down to the day. And I think as we grow our business, that you have to do it that way. Especially if you have other agents on team, it just has to be done that way. So that's how we came up with that number, and we just looked at what have our conversion rates been, and we're working on doing a better job of tracking those so we can more accurately predict these goals and make them predictable. But that's how we came up with 26.7.
That's awesome. So you mind sharing with anybody, some of the things that you feel like you're going to have to do? What are the things you're going to have to do that you didn't do last year to get to those goals?
No, absolutely. Yeah. We have our quarterly priorities. Obviously, we're doing the strategic plan. I think like a lot of the NAEA people are doing, but and that's been huge for us, looking at our quarterly priorities. And for me, it's just been that clarity. Every day I can wake up and literally every day look at those quarterly priorities so we can look at what they are. And, for me, I think part of it is I kind of went too far in the working on my business and not working in it. And so I think that was definitely a mistake that I made. I need to get back to working in it some as well. I think as long as I'm using my calendar to strategically have time scheduled to work on my business and in my business, then everything we need to get done will get done. But, getting back to for sale by owner expired, that was one of the things that, got me, rolling fast off when I first got in the business was working through those for sale by owners and expireds. And maybe this time we're going to do it a little bit different approach than I did before. rather than just calling random people and just making as many calls as I can. Let's do it a little bit more systematically, track the results so we know what's working and what's not working. And that's part of working on your business and in your business, right, at the same time. So that's big for us, working through a physical expired system. I think to reach our goals, we're going to need to get another agent just because there's enough on our plates where, to reach where we want to be, we need to have somebody else on the team as well. Right now we just have the one buyer's agent, and he's cranking it, but we need to get somebody else to be doing the same. Coming away from the mastermind event, it kind of got me focused on some other things as well. One is just to get as many things off my plate as I can. And, I've heard it many times from many people, but you're only worth what you can pay somebody else to do the same job. And so when I'm sitting here doing some menial task and I can pay somebody else who would want to do that job and be paid well for it, then, that's what I should do. And so getting things off my plate is one of my top priorities, but not just getting it off my plate, because I think things can be lost when you just dump it. You have to make sure that other person owns it, and really emphasizing the word owned, meaning at the end of the day, they are the ones that are responsible if it gets done or not, who's really in the driver's seat for that specific, task or function of the business. And they have to own it. It can't come back to you every time, otherwise it's really not off your plate. And then, a vendor program is really high up. I can't believe we haven't done this yet, and how important it can be, and it just makes sense. And you have to have, I think we just had the limited belief that nobody would want to pay us money, to be part of our plan. But that's when we didn't really have the plan, right? The long-term plan. Now that we have that and we know where we're going, then, people are going to want to be a part of that, and they're going to want to contribute to that. So a vendor program is something we're working on right now to kind of offset some or if not all of our marketing costs. And then the broker admin fee, it allows us to, grow our business in a way where we can provide a better service to our clients, and they're happy to pay it because of that. We have to make sure that we're doing that, and our focus every day is taking that money and figuring out what can we do with it to make sure that, we're growing in our business in a way that we differentiate ourselves from our competition. And if we do that, we'll be able to have no problem with transaction fees. And, coming away from Mastermind, I realized that I need to increase that even more, actually. And maybe that's going to allow us to, hire another admin person. And all of a sudden, that we have if we're, let's just say, for example, if 10% of our deals fall apart throughout the year, maybe that goes down to 2% because we have another person that's really focused and owning that position. And that's a benefit to our clients. And guess what? $5.95 a transaction is cheap to ensure that there is somebody in place to handle that closing process. But again, that has to be, I have to sell myself on it first, and I've done that. Now I just need to make sure we implement it, and that's one of the other priorities that we have coming out of the last mastermind event. So
that's amazing, dude. You're just doing an awesome job. It's so refreshing to hear somebody who gets it. I really want to take some time because so many people, either you get the planning or you not get the planning side of things. I don't know about you, but I've been in strategy the last 2 days, and how important do you feel? Well, okay, let me ask this differently. If someone asked you, why should I take the time to stop selling my, real estate and doing the things and lock myself in the room and fill out this strategic plan, and then to stop and do it on a quarterly basis, what do you say is the benefit for you? Why would you do it?
Clarity, I would say, vision and clarity. And
but why is that important?
Because any bus will get you there if you don't know where you're going, right? So if you don't know what is that 10-year plan, how are you going to know what bus to get on to get there? And once it's like Darren Hardy compound effect. Once you know what your plan is, you know what bus to get on. And once you know what bus to get on, you know that you need to get the right people on the bus and to ride that bus with you. And once you get the right people on the bus, it's about making sure they're in the right seats. And then once they're in the right seats, it's just about optimizing those positions that they're in. And now all of a sudden you have a business. So if you don't want to have a business that you could potentially step away from, or that's what we kind of call our well-oiled machine that just produces predictable results, then you maybe don't need to have a plan. But in 10 years from now, you're going to be where you're at today. And I was just on a call with you guys previously, and I think you said it, Mike. It's if you don't change your strategy, you're never going to change your results. And so that strategic plan and that vision and that clarity is what you're realigning your focus. And to me, that's huge. Yeah. Well, how else?
So and that's funny that you say that. Were you just on the Leads Today call?
Yeah.
Man, you don't let anything get by you.
Oh gosh, no! If there's an opportunity to be on a call, I'm on it. You guys. Yeah. It's funny that I think one of the guys on the call said there was like 40 some people on that call, and guess what? Those 40 people, I guarantee you, are the people that are committed to working on their business and growing it as a business. Somebody else, and maybe that's a mastermind event, somebody else said this, is, are you creating a job for yourself, or are you creating a business? And that's the difference between people that are doing strategic planning and really looking at it from a business and those that aren't. And, it's funny, when I came to the brokerage that I'm at, I came here because there was 2 agents that were top in our market, and I had to figure out what the heck they were doing. It took me literally 2 months to figure out that the way they were doing business, no matter how successful they were, is not sustainable. It's not a business. It doesn't last. I absolutely knew that was not the way I wanted to do business. I didn't quite know how yet, but I knew that wasn't the way. They were working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They were killing themselves. Who wants to do that? And I don't think anybody does, but I have a feeling they're doing it because they're not sure how else to do it. And so the strategic planning is that. So,
man, that's awesome, man. I couldn't. That's perfect. That's as real as it gets, and I think that sometimes we need to hear that confirmation. I know sometimes we read books. I'm reading a great book, and it's referencing other books I've read, and even though I know some of the information because I've read it before, hearing it at the right time is almost like I never read it before. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They say that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. So, I do think that there's different people that will listen to this interview and will connect, but with this interview differently. What I feel like is if someone was selling 200 or 300 or 400 homes, and I said, 5 years from now, which 2 of these people are going to sell more homes? The guy selling 300 to 400 homes is less likely to be selling more homes than you, because ultimately it's probably he built it on the wrong model. So the minute he tries to stop, he's going to have to go backwards to go forward, and be humble enough to do that and be in a situation like Dave Ramsey where he can afford to do that in the first place, right? So he's in that rat race because he's got to sell to pay for all the stuff that he's acquired over time, and he can't afford to give away any of the business to turn around and find a better way of doing the business.
No, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because I literally was thinking about that in the car on the way to the office this morning. You have these thoughts that will pop in your mind or whatever, and one thought was, what would my business look like if I was the one doing all the transactions, and that I was the one working, and showing every home and writing every contract and being at every inspection and being at every closing? What if I was that person and I wasn't paying out any splits and I didn't have an admin person and I just did everything myself? Well, what my mindset was, well, guess what? Your expenses every month would be less. Your time would be spent just making money, and that would be great, right? But then all of a sudden it was, the other side of it was a stronger voice and the voice of reason. And it's like, you know what? No, because, you're going to be in the exact same position you were when, you first got in the business, where you were working. I was probably working twice as many hours as I am now and selling, a quarter of the homes. And that's just not, it's no wonder that the average agent sells in our area 6 homes a year. It's because they can't, it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they don't work hard. They cannot do it on their own. And so that is creating a job for themselves and not a business. And so, it's so clear, but again, without that plan and that goal, that 10-year, 3-year annual goal, and down to the quarterly priorities, you're just not going to get there. So,
man, that's great stuff, man. Well, I know that you have a very busy schedule, and I do want to say thank you so much for taking time to jump on our call today and share with everybody. Is there any final things that that you might want to say to somebody who's out there listening that's maybe, I don't know, out there wants to take their business to the next level, but is really trying to, decide what they need to do this year? What would be your recommendation, I guess, to somebody who's kind of plateaued, if you will? What would you tell them to do to take their business and really have their best year ever?
Well, there's a lot of specific things that we could get into again, but, overall, I think that, I think just really looking at where's your business and where you want it to go. Back to the bus analogy, are you on the right bus to get you where you want to go? For me, that bus was NAEA, and the way that they have, trained my mind to look at the business differently. Not necessarily, they definitely give you some things to do, but just the way your mind processes and looks at this business. But are you on the right bus? And the bus stop that bus is taking you, is that where you want to go? And if it isn't, you need to change your trajectory and your direction maybe just a bit, and it'll make all that difference. But if you're not doing your strategic plan, I know that was such a tough thing for me to get through the first time, and it took a few times, honestly, to really kind of get it. And we're tweaking it all, quarterly, and kind of looking at it, make sure we're right there. But it's such a great filter to every decision you make in your business. You just literally run it through that filter, that strategic plan, and if it makes its way through it, guess what? That's the right thing to do. If it doesn't make it through it, there you go. You knew it wasn't the right thing to do. And I mean, literally, how much money could that save you every year in wasted dollars in advertising or people or whatever that don't fit your plan because, you didn't have a plan and you didn't have a filter. So, a strategic plan, that filter, that clarity, that vision, that direction is really, what I would suggest people really look at. And, that's where I would say to start. So
that is awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know that this is going to bring tremendous value to so many of our members, and really look forward to seeing you at EGS and seeing where you are in alignment with your goals. I know you're going to crush them. And more specifically, can't wait to hear about how things have gone at the next mastermind in Las Vegas, man. So look forward to seeing you and your family.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well, and excited to be a part of all this, and I appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.